The Mustang Mach-E might be the most important vehicle Ford has ever produced. So it's not going to replace the V8 Mustang, well, not yet at least, but it does signal a really fundamental shift in the way that we are going to travel. Now the first shift has already happened. That's to SUVs. The second shift is from petroleum to electrons, but in order to do that, I need a way to charge. And guess what? I don't have a charger at my home or at my office. So let's find out if I can live a whole week with the Mustang Mach-E without a charger. This SUV comes in different configurations. The regular battery is 68 kilowatt hours, or you can get the extended range battery, which is 88 kilowatt hours, and that's what this one has. The EPA says this is gonna do 270 miles of range. The rear-wheel drive version does 300 miles, and I've already run down the battery quite a bit, so let's go see what our first charging experience is gonna be like. I love olive oil, and you know, I'm completely out, so I think it's a really good idea to take a trip to Paso Robles, which is 173 miles away, to get some olive oil. It's telling me it's a 4-hour trip, 208 miles, so we're gonna hit go. I should let you know, I'm feeling a little range anxiety. So we've arrived at our first charging destination, which is Electrify America. The car has about 21% in it. It has a 55-mile range, but we need to go about 175 miles. So the Ford app on the dashboard, or rather the Ford display, is telling us that we need to charge for about 40 minutes to get enough power to get to Paso Robles. We have a dinner reservation at 6:30, and it says we're gonna arrive at 6:07 p.m. So I'm gonna plug it in. It's telling me to plug it in first. Let's see what happens. It's making some very robotic noises. So we've been charging for a little over 20 minutes at this point. We're at 49%. I can see that on the display here and on the Electrify America charger. Now Ford is telling me on the big display on the dash that we have to get to 80%, and that's gonna be about 20 minutes from now. I'd like to have a little more data. I'd like to know if I do need to get to 80% to make the trip, and I'd like to know what my range will be when I hit 80%. So just a little improvement that I would love to see in the Sync 4 system, which otherwise has been really, really good. So it got to 80% in the time that it estimated it would. And it tells me that now we have over 200 miles of range, so we're ready to hit the road. We're getting close to Paso Robles, but the battery is also getting really, really done. I'm down to 12%. I've got 18 miles to go, and the range is 27 miles. So that's leaving me, I think if my math is right, with a 9-mile margin. This EV strategy, you really gotta get the last mile out of it, otherwise you're gonna get stuck. And it's not like they can bring you a can of gas or a can of electricity, because I ain't seen a can of electricity that's gonna fill this car up. So we made it to Paso Robles. We have 5% left and 12 miles left, so that's pretty good. I had to slow it down a little bit, but we made it. So my range anxiety was sort of like at about a 7 or 8 for a little bit, but now it's 0 because I'm about to go get some food. After arriving in Paso Robles with just a few percent left in the battery, we decided to plug in at a local Electrify America charger and left the car for a few hours in preparation for the next day of olive oil hunting. But to get there, I wanted to find out how the Mach-E drives on back roads. The ride quality in here, I think, is particularly good. It strikes a really good balance between being sort of a sports car and sort of being a luxury SUV, and it sort of hits it right in the middle and hits it right on point. So it's firm, it's composed, and there's no surprises in here at all. The chassis is really rigid, it's really stiff, and the overall balance is particularly good. So this, being a Mustang, this is an all-wheel drive one, but the bias is more towards rear-wheel drive. So if I turn the traction control off and I kind of hoot in the corners, I can get the back end to come out, and I dig that a lot. So it drives like a sports car, sort of fused with an SUV, if that makes any sense at all. But that's sort of the way I feel about it. The steering is kind of a high point for me. There's way more feel in here than I expected. It's an electric rack, of course, but it was one of the first things I noticed when I started driving this car is how much feedback I'm getting from the road. I can really feel what the front tires are doing, and it just improves the overall driving experience, and it gives you more confidence. And I'm pretty highly critical of a lot of steering systems in cars nowadays, and Ford has nailed it in this. This is definitely, in my mind, better than the regular Mustang. So the brakes in this are pretty good. This has big 6-piston calipers, and they stop the car really well. I didn't try to overdo it right there, but they really do stop the car very, very well. Legitimately quick. Ford says it can do 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds. It's faster than the Porsche Macan S. Yeah, it's pretty quick. It's definitely pretty quick. I feel like it's quicker with a full battery, but this thing goes. This is a pretty fast SUV by SUV standards, in my opinion. The power and torque, of course, are instantaneous because it has 2 electric motors, and you get all of the torque right away, and it's very easy to modulate the power. It's very easy to drive. It has a couple different driving modes. I like to drive it in unbridled mode, which is, I guess, some kind of horse analogy. I'm not sure, let me know. It has a couple other modes too. One is called Whisper, which I don't really get, and then I forget what the other one is. But I like unbridled mode because it has a little bit of regenerative braking. So when you take your foot off the gas, if it's really gas, the electrons, it slows down a little bit and adds a little bit more juice back into the battery. So on your spectrum of SUVs from luxury to sporty, we've already determined that this is definitely more on the sporty side. Part of that is the way it handles. It likes to go around corners, which is nice. It grips the road. It has all-wheel drive. But aside from that, the chassis balance is particularly good in here. It really is firm, and it is the balance is rear-wheel drive biased, and that is, of course, fitting a Mustang. This is the all-wheel drive version, but when you turn the traction control off, you can actually get the rear end a little bit loose, a little bit sideways, and I dig it. Quite honestly, this is the biggest surprise of 2021 for me driving anything. I didn't think it would be this good. It's really good, and if you're on the fence about an electric vehicle, you should definitely drive this, because this doesn't feel like the competitors, in my opinion. We just made it to one of my favorite olive oil producers in California. And you know, there's a lot about the Mach-E which is kind of like a good olive oil. It's smooth, it's refined, its charms are very subtle, and it's never harsh. Did I just compare the Mach-E to olive oil?
Yeah, you did.
Oh. The FordPass network has 13,500 stations currently, but there's a couple things you need to know. Imagine you want to fill up your petrol-powered car with gasoline, but you're going to do it through a straw. Now that's going to take a long time because the straw is tiny and you can't get very much fuel through it. So that is kind of like charging your Mach-E at home on a 120-volt regular wall circuit. It's going to take possibly days. That's called level 1 charging, and it's the least desirable type of charging. Next, there's something called level 2 charging, and that is powered off a 240-volt circuit. You're probably gonna have it in your house. It powers your washer and dryer. So you can buy a charging unit from Ford, you can get them on Amazon, And Ford estimates with their unit, you can get up to 30 miles per hour of charging. Other systems might be 20 miles per hour of charging, but either way, you should be able to charge your electric vehicle overnight. So level 2 is kind of the equivalent of a garden hose compared to that 110 tiny straw. Then there are the fast chargers. You might hear them referred to as DC fast chargers. EVgo is an example of one of the networks that has fast chargers in it. It's part of the FordPass network. And at the fast chargers, you can charge up to 150 kilowatts. And Ford says the Mustang can accept up to 150 kilowatts of peak charging. But there's a bit of a wrinkle. Not all fast chargers are the same. This is the premium version. This is the dual motor, and it also has the extended range battery. Now, Ford says that on this battery, with this configuration, it should be able to do 270 miles of range. But I don't really know if that's true. I want to figure out the real world range of this. So we're at an Electrify America station here in Paso Robles. Gonna fill up the car, get it up to maybe 95, maybe 100% over a few hours, and then drive it as far as we can on a single charge down to Los Angeles. And we're gonna see what the real world range is. If you want to see the results of my range test, there will be another video with all the details linked in the description. This is the premium edition, and this is Rapid Red. It has 19-inch machined wheels. This is all-wheel drive, which means it has 2 motors, and this has the extended range battery pack. The base price on this is $49,700. With the extended range battery, this is about $56,000. There's a variety of different surfaces and materials in here, and the build quality is really high. The stitching is even. We have nice contrasting, sort of taupe colored. It's not leather, it's imitation. It's called Active X. We have what is not quite real carbon fiber, but it looks pretty good. It's plastic. And then there's this B&O soundbar, which goes all the way across the dash. It has this cloth surface on it. It sounds particularly good. In the center, you've got a 15.5-inch display, Apple CarPlay, wireless at that. I like wireless Apple CarPlay. It's much better than the wired variety. And most importantly, right in front of the driver, you have a display showing your basic stuff like your speed, your navigation, and the basic level of your battery charge. The seats are electric. They have a lot of adjustments, although I'd like a little bit more. My one complaint is that the lumbar support, it's only one way. It doesn't go up and down, and there just isn't quite enough lumbar support for me on long trips. In the back seat, there's plenty of room for 2. In fact, we could fit a 3rd person back here. Headroom is actually very good, despite the fact that we have this big panoramic sunroof. Plenty of headroom back here, plenty of leg room, and we got a couple USB ports and cameramen. Are you happy?
Yes.
That's all that matters. Overall, my impression is this is kind of upscale, definitely more so than your typical Mustang. The fit and finish is really good. Everything looks good. I like the materials. This is a nice surprise from Ford. So let's come back to that question of, can I drive this thing? Can I live with it for a week without having a charger at home or at my office? And I have to say, it's a pretty mixed answer. Yeah, if I had a charger at home, I think it wouldn't be any problem at all. But if you're gonna take road trips, you really do need to carefully plan, and you sort of need to consider what you're gonna do, where you're gonna do, and making sure you can find a fast charger. Is this a Mustang? Ford thinks it's a Mustang, and it's pretty hard to argue with that, although certainly a lot of people are gonna debate this endlessly. I think this is a great SUV. It's a great vehicle overall. I think it's a really transformational SUV from Ford. They're pretty committed to doing it. They're gonna do a lot more of these, and honestly, they knocked it out of the park with this. If I was looking for an SUV right now, this would be in my short list. I would definitely consider this. My name is Eric. Thanks for watching.